I think that this case, even to the small extent it's proceeded so far, has shown that we have had to rely on decisions by other courts in other states and have had very little help from state decisions. It doesn't happen too often, thank goodness.
Norman doesn't have as much water as they did this time last year, but that's not the whole problem. Norman gets water from deep wells in Lake Thunderbird. The aquifer level has declined, and that has left them a little short. The slack could be taken up by the lake if there was some way to treat it, but there isn't. So city officials are meeting tonight to talk about banning altogether the outdoor use of water.
We're looking at our plant right now. We're looking at our well field and finding out exactly how much droppage we've had in our water table, how much recovery we're having, and we're looking at the last few days as far as what our maximum yield has been and before we make this decision.
Crosby says if they don't ban outdoor use tonight, they'll do it tomorrow or the next day, and it will be in effect, barring unexpected rainfall, till October 1st. He says the ban will be strictly enforced, and the fine for violators will be $100. Ted Brown, Action 4 in Norman.
Workers at the OG&E station downtown know all about top electricity usage, especially after last year's summer temperatures hovered in the hundreds day after day. One would think they couldn't break a record like that, but they did today. The peak was between 4 and 5 in the evening, just when people were getting off work and turning on their air conditioners.
Our summer hasn't been as hot yet. However, we've already exceeded last year's demand. We've already exceeded last year by 3.5%. And when we reach extreme temperatures like this, Bella, our generators are all on. Our customer load is high. This is the peak time of year for us, the time of maximum usage. The system is well prepared. Our maintenance is done, and we're ready for these high loads.
Deaton says unless there's a serious loss of a large unit, OG&E can handle the record usage. They're carefully monitoring their charts and graphs to see how much electricity is being used in an hour. But with temperatures soaring in the hundreds again tomorrow, could it be that today's record will be broken? We'll see. Bella Shaw, Action 4 at OG&E. About 3 o'clock this morning, firemen were called to the Continental Terrace apartments in far west Oklahoma City. A man who had just gotten off work spotted smoke in one of the apartments. He alerted other residents. Some jumped from second-story windows. But the apartment where the fire started was a death trap. And 37-year-old Donna Cohn died of smoke inhalation. This morning, the residents from the other 4 apartments that were gutted began sifting through what was left. The shock from the night had worn off, and they felt they were lucky to be alive.
I grabbed a wash rag and I wet it and gave it to the wife. She went to the screen and pushed the screen out, By the time I got my pants on and got to the window, it was so bad in there you couldn't breathe at all. And about 30 seconds later, a fireman came along with a ladder and got us out.
But at that point, you were pretty well ready to jump out, weren't you?
Oh yeah, we was about ready to drop. She had her leg out when they was coming around the edge of the building.
The Smith family and others will have to find someplace else to stay. The damage estimate has been set at $47,000. It's something people fear when living in apartments, that a blaze will break out in the middle of the night while everyone is asleep. Donna Cohen's death was a tragedy, and it was a wonder the other residents didn't succumb to smoke inhalation too. Bella Shaw, Action 4 at the Continental Terrace Apartments.
City police were voting all day long today on whether or not to accept their latest contract proposal. Late last month, negotiations between the police union and the city came to a halt when officers rejected the city's offer. The police union called for federal mediation, a move that would have bound them to a contract. The mediators were never assembled. Tonight, officers waited. Earlier this week, Union President Ray Clark came up with a new proposal, one that the city liked and the officers found acceptable. Not good, but not bad enough to reject a second time. When the tally came in, the city had won by a 3-2 margin.
We had 304 yes votes to ratify the contract, 197 no votes. I have 4 absentee ballots sealed at the lodge that I'll have to pick up, but it wouldn't affect the outcome. I'm not happy, but I wasn't opposed enough to it to vote against the contract. I felt that 10.5% was not unreasonable. I felt the city could afford 10.5%. I thought that was fair, and I've tried to be fair all along. The city just wouldn't go that far, and we're going to have to go for binding arbitration.
The vote today has calmed the situation for another year, but the union still thinks that their requests are fair and reasonable. Clark says that they'll be back at the negotiation tables next year, and hopefully they'll have a bigger hammer to negotiate with. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4 at the police headquarters.
Northwest 16th and Council Road. Lots of cars, lots of trees, and lots of birds.
Sure, just grab them there. They're getting buried by the hay. This little guy, are you okay? Yeah, some of them are really dehydrated.
More specifically, they are cattle egrets. The zoo supplies tender-loving care and water. The zoo will be a surrogate Mother Nature, relocating the birds in a new rookery.
That's it for today.
But for now, the main concern of zoo curator Bruce Miller is to make sure the birds make it. That means these young birds must be watered and fed until they become adults. By doing that, the zoo hopes to attract other birds in the area that also might be facing cramped living quarters.
Let's give you a piece. Oh. Come on. It's gonna be good. You're gonna like it.
Only birds that have a slim chance of survival will be rescued. The rest are supposed to be able to take care of themselves. The new rookery is a gamble, and not the only solution.
Another answer would be a more realistic look or a stronger appreciation of wildlife for what it is and the fact that we need to preserve it in its wild state.
Tony Stizza, Action 4 at the Oklahoma City Zoo.
A sprinkler running in the hot afternoon won't be a common sight in Midwest City after today. This morning, the Midwest City manager declared a water emergency. He ordered a mandatory water rationing plan, which would severely limit outside watering beginning immediately. Midwest City residents whose addresses end with an odd number will be permitted to water lawns and shrubbery only on odd-numbered nights between 10 p.m. and 8 a.m. Residents with even-numbered addresses may only water on even nights. Violators could be fined $35 for each infraction. Repeat offenders could have their water shut off. Midwest City's basic problem is the same as the city of Norman's. This water treatment plant was built back in the mid-1960s, but it just can't handle the basic needs of this thirsty town anymore.
What we're experiencing and what we've determined from our records is that even the same number of customers on the system are beginning to use more water because of swimming pools and lawn watering systems and outdoor water recreation activities, and so just the same water population would use more water. City officials say the best solution for Midwest City's water problem would be to expand the water treatment plant. The construction could be financed by capital improvement bonds. But even if Midwest City voters go along with that idea, the solution to this town's water troubles would still be 2 years and $7 million away. Scott Wallace, Action 4 in Midwest City.
Well, by about 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, Oklahoma time, Charles and Lady Diana will be Mr. and Mrs. Prince of Wales. It's a big deal in Britain, no doubt about it. More than 1 million spectators will line the procession's path, and millions more in Britain and the U.S. will watch the entire spectacle live on TV. The British are really up for the wedding, but how about Oklahomans?
I really think it's kind of boring.
I think it's fine for Britt.
I think it's really neat. I think she's a really good-looking girl, and I think it's really doing a lot of good for England.
Well, I think considering what's going on today with all the inflation and all the bad news and stuff, it's nice to have something social to look forward to. It kind of takes the load off.
My wife and I, we just recently got married, and I think it's beautiful. I wish we could have one as lovely as they're going to have. So it should be great.
I really don't care.
Well, feelings are mixed, but most will admit the wedding has captured the imagination of people on both sides of the water, with its romanticism and pageantry, and has just about every American thinking fondly of our mother country. Maybe if enough of us sign a petition, we can talk the Queen into taking us back. Ted Brown, Action 4.
Comparisons become difficult when you have variances in weather per year, but we did feel that 1978 as compared to 1980 was a very valid comparison in terms of measuring the reduction in peak demand. And that's what we were trying to prove in this test. It was of interest to us, but over the years we've developed a very good feel for what the savings in energy is going to be with increased insulation. That's why we chose what we hoped would be very similar years in terms of peak demand, not duration of temperature, but peak demand and peak temperature.
Did we have peak demands in
This sparse examining room is like a second home to Althea and Brandy Leatherwood. They've been coming here since 1976. That's when doctors discovered they had cystic fibrosis, an inherited disease which has no cure. Like all CF patients, Brandy has trouble breathing. Thick, ropey mucus clogs her lungs and digestive tract. She coughs a lot and has a hard time gaining weight. Respiratory infections and digestive problems come and go like a common cold, wearing down her resistance a little more each year. Brandy is only 9 years old, victim of a disease where few live past 20. Terry Vinson is an amazing exception. She's 23, and she's been living with CF since she was 7. Medical science has been fighting the battle against cystic fibrosis for years. There's no victory, no answer. Terry has outlived the predictions, but still there's frustration and fear. No matter how hard she fights, the disease always wins.
I put my trust in God, you know, and I know when I have problems or stuff, I'm learning that I can put my burdens, give him the burdens, and he sees me through everything, so I don't worry about it.
Terry Vinson relies on God, but researchers at the Health Science Center depend upon years of investigation. Finally, scientists have been able to make animals display some of the symptoms of cystic fibrosis found in humans. That's like finding the last piece of border in a jigsaw puzzle. The animal model is a framework, and scientists are now able to work backwards to find what genetic and chemical factors triggered the disease.
The hope and implication of our research is that by developing some animal models of the disease cystic fibrosis, that we will better understand how this disease occurs, what causes the problems that these children have, and our ultimate hope is that it will lead to better treatment and a cure of this disease.
Researchers are well on their way to finding a cure for cystic fibrosis. The answer may come in the next few years. That's good news for future generations, whose children may never have to worry about cystic fibrosis. But for people like Terry Vinson, a few years from now may not be soon enough. For Medical Matters, Sue Lauer, Action 4.
U.S. District Judge Fred Doherty extended the temporary restraining order he issued Tuesday. This means that the planned chemical application for Sunday at Fort Cobb Reservoir has been delayed again. The government wants to put the chemical 2,4-D in the reservoir to destroy the water weed. Officials in charge at Fort Cobb say the weed is a hazard to boaters, skiers, and swimmers, and that the weed will make the water undesirable if it isn't destroyed. Citizens against 2,4-D say the chemical is a health hazard.
I want to stop this before they use it in the drinking water of America.
These citizens want the government to make an environmental impact study. Judge Doherty will make a decision Thursday. Ben McCain, Action 4.
Home building contractors in Oklahoma City appear to have good faith in the Oklahoma City market. Some contractors are venturing into million-dollar projects, confident they will sell. They may have more reasons to be confident now. The Reagan budget and the proposed tax cuts may give the economy a promise of stability that it needs to encourage buyers.
I don't see a tremendous advantage to the consumer such as you or I at the present time in making that such an increase in my income that I can now do some other things. But I think that the overall effect that having these now settled and known will cause us to see a lessening in the interest rates.
Griffith warns a prospective buyer not to postpone purchasing a house. A home is always a sound investment, but if a buyer waits, he runs the risk of inflation consuming any interest he may have saved. And now, with adjustable mortgage rates available, it would be especially wise to get into the home buying market. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4, in northwest Oklahoma City.
Hundreds of Oklahoma City travelers spent the day scrambling for what they fear could be the last flights available. Ticket counters were backlogged with people making last-minute changes and reservations. Still, many airport employees say it's no more hectic today than usual on a weekend at the peak of the vacation season. Many employees and travelers were irritated with the strike threat, but most took a wait-and-see attitude.
We did check the paper every day and listen to the news every day to make sure, that they didn't go on strike. And all my friends that are traveling right now, they have made other plans just in case.
I was getting married, and it's a honeymoon deal. And as far as changing plans, I couldn't change my marriage around it. So I'm, going to go ahead and try it.
We both out here have both been in the hospital, but we're going back a little early so we don't get caught in that, so we can get back to Miami.
I work and I travel all the time. It hasn't bothered me yet, but it may.
Between the baseball strike and the air traffic controller strike, I think people are getting carried away.
If no agreement is reached between controllers and the government before morning, 2 of every 3 passengers here will be out of luck on travel plans. But most are remembering what happened last June when a threatened controller strike was averted at the last minute. Mark O'Neill, Action 4, Will Rogers World Airport.
There are a lot of people waiting around airports today, not sure what flights will make it and what flights won't. But one Oklahoma group wasn't too concerned about the effects of the air traffic controller strike. The Oklahoma Youth Orchestra has been planning their trip to the People's Republic of China for about a year, and Trans World Airline put them on high priority to get them there, strike or not. For the directors of the 92-member orchestra, it was just one last barrier to overcome.
But once the thing got rolling and once the media began to help us, everything began to go uphill. And now this is the last one. I mean, it's as though someone said, well, we're going to try to confuse the issue, complicate things one last time, and if they can overcome this, we'll let them go.
If everything continues to go right, the orchestra will spend 2 weeks in China, conducting a concert tour and talking with music students there, learning about Chinese music and the culture. But today the main concern was getting there. The strike will not stand in the way of international diplomacy, but passengers and parents learned that it may slow it down. The flight took off, 15 minutes late, but headed in the right direction. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4.
It's now 3 o'clock in the afternoon here at Will Rogers World Airport Control Tower. We've gone through 2 deadlines. The first one set by President Reagan at 10 o'clock Oklahoma City time this morning for striking air traffic controllers to go back to work. It's 3 o'clock, so that means a new shift of air traffic controllers should be going through the doors here on their way to work. But since we've been here, only one supervisory employee has gone through the door. 26 Oklahoma City controllers were on strike today. Of those, 11 were supposed to show up this afternoon but did not. Earlier, officials were asked if they thought more strikers would change their minds. Has there been any indication to you that some of the striking controllers will come back to work?
We have had one indicate he would be back this afternoon, and that, to my knowledge, is the only one.
The next step, according to the FAA, is that all striking controllers who did not report for work at 3 o'clock today will be notified by mail they have been fired. They'll have 7 days to respond to this termination to federal officials. Ed Stewart, Action 4 at the Will Rogers World Airport Control Tower.